Turbine Guy coming back at you outside the Long Lake Fire Department today because there's some pretty doggone big news directly related to the battle over the life of this fire department right behind me. Just over 2 weeks after Long Lake filed a lawsuit for a temporary restraining order against Orono, which is lightning fast if you know how the Hennepin County court system works, an order has been issued. Go ahead and see what this order says. Order on plaintiff's motion for temporary injunctive relief. City of Long Lake is the plaintiff. City of Orono is the defendant. The above entitled matter came for a hearing before the Honorable Lori J. Miller on June 30th, 2023 on plaintiff's motion for temporary injunctive relief. Order. Plaintiff, City of Long Lake's motion for temporary injunctive relief is granted. Defendant City of Orono is hereby temporarily enjoined during the pendency of this litigation from directly or indirectly committing any violation of the contract for fire protection and the contract for joint ownership to which the City of Long Lake and City of Orono are parties, and from interfering with the fire service contract to which the City of Long Lake and Village of Minnetonka Beach are parties. City of Orono is temporarily enjoined from recruiting Long Lake firefighters to begin working for the Orono Fire Department, seeking a transfer of Long Lake firefighters' pension funds, or otherwise interfering with the work of the Long Lake firefighters before the end of this litigation. City of Orono is temporarily enjoined from using or hindering City of Long Lake's use of Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2 before the end of this litigation, except to the extent that Long Lake agrees. In its discretion, the court has determined that the City of Long Lake shall not be required to post a bond under Minnesota 65.03. That's a little bit important because that bond posting, you're supposed to put up enough money to cover the opponent if you lose. So Judge Miller might be thinking the City of Long Lake is not going to lose. Allowing Orono to move forward with its plans to recruit firefighters away from Long Lake to take over Fire Station 2 in 2024 and to seek a transfer of Long Lake firefighters' pension funds to Orono would represent a major alteration in the status quo of the party's 21-year-old pre-existing contractual relationship. Orono does not yet have a fire department, nor is it under any obligation to provide fire protection services to any community. In the current status quo, Long Lake does have a fire department, and its contractual obligations to provide fire protection services to Orono, as well as 2 other communities, will continue to extend for another 2.5 years. The court reiterates that the standard for a party seeking temporary injunctive relief to show likelihood of success is not as high as that for a party seeking summary judgment. Long Lake does not have to prove that it will win the case in the end for a temporary injunction to be granted. It is enough for Long Lake to show that it has a reasonable case on the merits. Based upon its review of the evidence submitted, the court finds that Long Lake has shown sufficient likelihood of success on the merits on its breach of contract implied covenant claims to satisfy the third Dahlberg factor. In conclusion, as the status quo stands, Long Lake has an operational fire department with 108 years of experience. The Long Lake Fire Department serves 4 cities and no evidence was provided to suggest it had provided inadequate service to Orono or anybody else. Did you hear that, folks? Nothing inadequate, no matter how much they try to claim it. Orono does not yet have a fire department, and it has no current obligation to provide fire protection services. The parties' contracts are scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2025. Long Lake recognizes that Orono will not renew the contracts again. Orono acknowledges its obligation to comply with the contracts until they expire. But for unexplained reasons, Orono has acted in ways showing that it is not content to wait for the contracts to expire before it begins to compete with Long Lake. It has taken concrete steps to try to deprive the Long Lake Fire Department of access to essential equipment, the ladder truck, financial resources, the firefighters' pensions, personnel, fire chief and firefighters, and real property, the fire stations. These actions may not have all succeeded, at least not yet, but they are viewed by Long Lake as unfriendly and potentially destabilizing to the Long Lake Fire Department. For the reasons detailed above, all the Dahlberg factors support issuance of a temporary injunctive relief. City of Orono was spanked by Judge Miller. She smacked them down good. She most definitely saw through the lies and misinformation put out by Orono Mayor Walsh and the City of Orono. And it appears she determined that contracts are valid in the state of Minnesota and they do need to be honored. Verbiage of the order by Judge Miller certainly shows that Orono Mayor Walsh has been trafficking in propaganda and misinformation when it comes to his attempted takeover of the Long Lake Fire Department. She made it clear that Orono did steal a fire chief, was trying to steal the firefighters from Long Lake, and tried to steal the relief fund as well. Not only that Orono was going to violate the contract as soon as it attempted to take over Station Number 2 in Navarre. So what does this order mean for Orono? What does this injunction do? Well, it lasts the length of the litigation. So Orono, between now and then, cannot attempt to steal the firefighter funds anymore. Not only that, when Orono hosts its next open house, right here at the police station like it did last time, they won't be able to recruit any of the Long Lake firefighters. In fact, according to that order, they'll have to turn them out the door and send them on their way. This ruling severely handcuffs the city of Orono in their attempt to form a new fire department, as now they can't go down the path they were planning on. Orono's already altered a resolution to try to save face, and all that means to the turbine guy is that the first resolution wasn't really legal. But now Orono's going to have to explain to a mediator, and most likely the courts, why it decided violating the contract early, buying a fire truck out from under Long Lake, taking their fire chief, were all good and upfront activities that were allowed by the contract, which we all know they weren't. Well, kudos to Long Lake for standing their ground and standing up to the bullying tactics of Orono and Orono's Mayor Walsh. The biggest lie exposed in this ruling is what Walsh and Orono have been running around saying, and that there's some kind of response time issue, which is Orono's basis for needing a new fire station or something. Well, right in the ruling it says Orono made no arguments in regards to bad response times. And you know, if they had one, they surely would have. As I remember, Walsh said just the other day that all these lawsuits were just going to be swept away. Well, Orono, Mayor Walsh, you're going to need a pretty doggone big broom to sweep away Judge Miller. And I don't think you have one big enough. Well, this is just a temporary restraining order. The lawsuit's not over by any means. Orono hasn't been stopped from forming a fire station. None of that. But this is the first step in saving the Long Lake Fire Department and preventing what the turbine guy would call a hostile takeover of said department. The best part of all of this is Orono Mayor Walsh once again exposed for his lies, agenda, propaganda, and just plain ignorance. Turbine guy signing off.